Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good to see all of you. We'll give everyone a moment to get in. I see we have lots of people joining us from the waiting room. It's good to be here with all of you. We have a fast-paced bit of programming to go through with you all tonight, and I'm very excited to dive into all of it. Whether this is your first call with goodparty.org or maybe your 100th call with us, I want to invite you to go ahead and say hello in the chat box. Maybe say where you're calling from today. I'm usually calling from more rustic surroundings in Maine, but I'm Rob and I am calling from San Diego today. And go ahead, folks, and say hello in that chat box. We're going to be taking questions in that chat box at the end of the call. So feel free as things come to mind to ask a handful of questions. We want to keep this as interactive as we can. But I'm just going to kind of jump right into everything. So tonight we're here to celebrate something truly historic in a lot of ways. In 2024, as the slide says, 6,101 independents stepped up to run for office across the country with goodparty.org. And I want everybody to think about that for a minute. That means that 6,101 people said, I'm going to lead. I'm going to represent my community. And when I do it, I'm going to put people over party. And before we get into what I think a lot of people tuned into this call for, and that's to hear about the winning campaigns, I want to be really clear. Every single one of those 6,101 campaigns was a victory in its own right because every door knocked, every conversation we had, every ballot cast was a step toward proving what I think most of the people who are on this call have maybe suspected for a while, and that's that a different type of politics is not just possible, but it's inevitable. And if you take a look at this chart here, what's really special is that this organization started in 2019. And from when we started up until just last year, we had zero victories to celebrate. And then last year in August, we had our proof of concept win in Nashville, Tennessee, where we went from 0 to 1, which, as Farhad, who you'll hear from later, often says is an infinite gain. And by the end of the year, by the end of 2023, we moved from just 1 win to 11 wins. And without stealing too much of the political team's thunder, we ended last year with 3,287 wins. And I want to celebrate that because that growth is not just a statistic, it's the foundation of a movement that's making tools to change the rules. And yes, we're here tonight to celebrate that as a milestone, but also as a sign that a different type of politics is possible. So over the course of this call, we're going to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate 2024. We're going to relive some of the highlights and introduce you to some of the hard fought winners and victories and some of the moments that defined the year. But we're also going to look forward to 2025. And we're going to lay out our roadmap to talk about how we're going to build on this momentum so this graph continues to grow and go up and up and up. And then finally, we're going to talk about your role in this movement, the ways that you can have an impact in running for office yourself or helping to grow this movement as a whole. So I'm really excited to just get into the meat of all of this. And, I think that there's an exciting, critical moment of growth that we're entering, and it's only getting stronger. So up next, I'm going to hand it off to our CEO, Jacques, who is going to highlight some of the biggest wins from 2024 and show us how these victories are helping to reshape politics. So, Jacques, I'd love for you to take it away and to walk us through how many of the races we won, as well as what types of offices those victories were in, and how exactly goodparty.org was able to help these candidates get over the finish line. So Jacques, without further ado, you're up.
Thanks, Rob. I had a little glitch there on unmuting me. Thank you so much, Rob, for the lead in and the intro. This is super exciting. Most importantly, though, thanks for everybody that's joining the call. It's exciting to see this movement grow, this community grow, and all of you that are participating is more fuel for the fire that started this year. So, yeah, I think we should just dive into the numbers and get into some of the stories behind them. I'm excited to share what we're beginning to learn about the success we had this year. Yeah, Rob said that he didn't want to steal my thunder, and that's okay, Rob. Steal it, spread the word, spread the good word. 6,101 candidates. Total races won 3,287. So that's 3,287 new elected officials who pledged to be independent, people-powered, and anti-corruption. The idea of that is really quite an amazing accomplishment, given the challenges that independents face in American politics, or that the story we're told, at least, is that independents can't win, and we're proving something else is true. The moment right now is really has the opportunity, I think, the potential to reshape how people view politics in America, and it starts with us, right? It starts with all of us in this Zoom. It starts with us that are part of this community spreading the word. If you click to the over to the next slide, we can talk about I think we're looking at yeah, there it is, the huge turnout for goodparty.org candidates. I know there's a lot of numbers on the slide, but I think it's worth taking a minute to understand what's here and sharing. So the takeaway really is, 40 million Americans, over 40 million Americans voted for candidates who pledged to be independent, people-powered, and anti-corruption. Goodparty.org certified candidates. That's 26% of all voters who voted in this past election. So why does that matter, or what's that mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, if you take a look at the top here, and there's 244 million eligible voters in America, but guess what? They don't all participate. In fact, 88 million people, almost 90 million Americans, chose not to participate because they're not persuaded that the Republicans and Democrats are the best people for these jobs of serving as our elected officials. The third party and down ballot folks, there's those that are brave enough to ignore the presidential race and say that they just won't give their vote over, represent another five. And so what you end up having is over 90 million Americans who are eligible to vote who choose not to support either party. And then another third of those Republican and Democratic voters at the top of the ticket. Pew Research has done this exit polling year after year. About a third of folks that participate in elections are voting lesser of two evils. So they're not voting for something. They don't feel like they're represented. They're just trying to prevent something worse from happening in their own mind. All told, that's 140 million Americans who are not represented. That's the majority of Americans don't see themselves in the candidates who are running for office. And that's why it's so important that 40 million people, whether they knew it or not, frankly, chose an independent, people-powered anti-corruption candidate. These other 140 million plus are waiting for something to come, an alternative, a better choice, better options. And for decades, I think it's been true that there just hasn't been that. And what we say is, hey, guess what? The cavalry is finally coming. We have evidence of it. We don't just have hope. We don't just have a credible plan. We actually have results. And the results we have are reflected in those 3,287 candidates who won. If you click to the next one, team, you see this win by office types. I think one of the things that's most interesting is that these victories weren't just in one area. They spanned every branch of government. So there's a lot of focus at the presidential level. That's the executive branch, right? And everybody gets all riled up at these, are these really two of the best Americans to do that job? and we debate that and we fight over that and we're divided over that. And yet these 40 million Americans that found independent, people-powered, anti-corruption candidates found them as mayors in the executive branch. They found them as legislators in the councils, town councils, and city councils. They found them in the judiciary. There's administrative roles. There's school boards all over the country that are being represented by nonpartisans. Like Rob said, people that put not only people above party, but put their communities first, and they're there to serve. The total races, if you click to the next slide, Rob, where are these happening? So those are the types of races. I'm reminded when I see this chart of an old quote by the author William Gibson that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. The future is independent. And you see this here, Minnesota, California, Michigan, Kentucky, Florida. These were some of the early adopters, the ones that identified these independent candidates. But it's coming, right? It's only a matter of time. We touched 48 states and saw victories in 48 states and DC. The idea that in every state in America in the coming election, at every level, in every type of office, that there are these types of candidates who are putting service to their community first, not political celebrity, if you will. It's incredibly exciting. And so we can't wait to share more about who some of these people are. The numbers are great, but what's even better are the stories. And we think of them as civic heroes, right? These are the people that, like Rob said, they step forward, they're leading the candidates themselves. And I think it'd be great to hear a little bit from them before we move on.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss to point out that some of these folks I see in the list of participants on the call here. So it's good to see you.
I am actually the first African American to win a citywide seat in Rock Hill, South Carolina, ever. We've had Black people win seats, but never someone actually win the whole city. And I won the whole city, and I won 46 out of the 47 precincts in Rock Hill. And the vote tally is the highest ever for an at-large candidate.
This was an awesome opportunity to go for a nonpartisan role so I can see the entire field, understand it. And I love Good Party. It's focusing on that third voice. We have these two parties in there. It's like, let's get that third party in there. Let's get that independent voice going. And I've always kind of been more of an independent, I would say, than I have Democrat or Republican, because I think there's more than one story to be told.
Here's the catch. I won. I'm a regular scout mom. I'm a teacher. I'm a normal person. And in my advertisement, it says regular Newark person wanting to represent Newark people. People are tired of the Democrats. People are tired of that. People don't want that anymore. People want normal people. And that was my big thing.
Either I was going to be successful by having enough votes, or I was going to be successful in the connections that I made within the community when I was running. So by the time this campaign was over, I already won.
My top priority is to get people around the table and getting marginalized groups of people who do not have a voice currently in this district because they didn't know how to have a voice, they didn't know who to talk to, get them around the table and be part of the solutions. I just really love my town.
Awesome. So an incredible group there, obviously, and there's nothing that says, real life to me more than a dog that interrupts your victory speech. As a fellow owner of a particularly naughty dog,
I am actually the first African American.
Go ahead. We want to talk a little bit more specifically and go a little bit deeper into spotlighting another candidate. Robin's actually here on the call with us. I saw her sneak in, but wanted to be able to share, before we talk about how we help candidates, a little bit deeper about why candidates run for office in the first place. So I have another short video for you that I'm going to play here. And let's give Robin a little bit of love via some snaps, some claps, and some love in the chat.
My youngest son was starting 9th grade, and I was kind of pressuring him to run for an office in SGA. I was in SGA in high school, and I'm like, this will look great on your college resume. Let's start building. And he looked at me and he said, why don't you run for something? You're always telling us to run for something. Why don't you run for something? And I was like, you know what, you're right. I will run for something. And so this just so happened to be a nonpartisan race that obviously is direct, that I'm directly affected. My children are. I'm glad I made the decision, to team up with you all. And it's been a overwhelming experience. I think that's the best way to describe it. I tell people this is possibly the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, but hard work paid off. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome.
My youngest son was starting ninth grade, and
so Robin ran with grit and determination. She applied that same grit to chasing me down to get one of these Good Party hats after we didn't send it to her on her first request. Again, speak to her tenacity. But Robin ran for Prince George's County School Board in Maryland, and she was running against an incumbent who had won the primary with 30%. Robin finished second out of 4 candidates with 25% of the vote. And she became a Good Party Pro candidate shortly after that primary. And over the course of the run-up to the general election, with our political team, with Jared Alper from our political team, she had 12 different weekly meetings where she was able to ask questions, to get feedback on what she was working through. We were able to spin up 34,000 plus text messages to voters in her district. She created 20 AI-assisted docs. So these are documents like press releases, documents that take best practices and apply them to things like door knocking scripts or phone calling scripts. And she knocked 600 doors. We have a door knocking solution called eCanvasser that we make available to our candidates that helps you with route creation. And she had 3 custom strategies created out of the voter file. All of this added up on top of the hard work that Robin was doing as an amazing messenger and staying disciplined. All of this added up to, on election day, Robin won her election by 7,500 votes, defeating an incumbent, which is a really hard thing to do, 56% to 43%. So again, I want to give a shout out to Robin and the incredible campaign that she ran. And Robin is just one of these stories. Again, we had 3,000 plus candidates who were able to win their campaigns. So it's been a really exciting run. On that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment. And I would like to now introduce someone who I think doesn't really need an introduction, and that's our founder, Farhad. So Farhad, I wanted to ask you, you're a volunteer in chief, and you've been with this movement from day one, from the lean moments where there was a goose egg on the win board in 2019. Can you tell us why you started goodparty.org, and what is it about this moment that excites you as we look forward to 2025?
Well, thank you, Rob. And yes, I've been with it from the beginning, obviously. But why Good Party and why this particular getting money out of politics? I've been a technologist my whole life. I started a bunch of technology companies that did relatively well: BizRate, Shopzilla, Flipagram, in various decades, each one of them empowering consumers to do things, billions of dollars in sales and billions of users over the course of time. And I came out of that thinking about, okay, so I've done the commercial route, I've done things. Now, what am I going to do to have the biggest impact possible? As I looked around, and this was around 2018, 2019 timeframe, looking around, I looked around all these different issues that we were facing, and I'm a father now, I have kids, looking around, see how can I make the world a better place here? And it was clear to me that whatever solutions I was looking at could either be helped or hindered tremendously by the rules of society, and how those rules get set right now is our government. That's our hope is democracy sets the rules in such a way that the majority get their will and the minority are protected. But as I looked around, increasingly it seemed like the rules are always bending towards money and special interests. And in fact, as I started to do the research, it was more clear than why. It's 98% of our Congress gets more money from big money than individual donors, and 9 out of 10 races in Congress are determined by just who raises the most money. So they're always thinking about the money, and the money is in increasingly fewer and fewer people's hands. So it became clear to me that if you really want to impact or have an impact, you need to get money out of politics so the rules can be set in a way that benefits people. And how do you get money out of politics where you can't do it for money? And that was like, okay, so I've had this lot of success in the past, and I don't need all this resources myself. I'm not one of these, yacht buying people. So, look at my outfit, that's just it. And so I'm a candidate there. I can sink some money into this. And if you're going to use some kind of a lever, what's the lever going to be? Technology seemed like a good lever. That's how I've democratized various different fields, from ratings to shopping to short videos and whatnot. I democratized a lot of different areas with technology. So technology and resources putting into it in sort of a non-commercial setting seems like the best thing we can do, and in fact, an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. And so, to me, the notion of getting wins is one stop here in the process. We had to get some wins. So as you showed in the early chart, 0, 0, 0, that's okay as long as you have an exponential at some point. Looks like we're starting to hit that exponential. 11 to 3,287 sounds like a pretty good jump, 300x. And that's a good start. But winning elections only gets you a seat at the table, because people aren't looking for just people to win elections. They're looking for results, changes in their community, a true representative democracy. And so here we now have 3,287 people, hopefully even more, that we can take a set of serve tools so they can accountably and transparently serve their communities. So imagine receiving emails from the representatives, some of you who are on here. Imagine sending emails to your community saying, hey, I want to make it a relationship with you, and not based on raising money. I'm trying to figure out what we need to do in our community to do better. Here are the things I have. Help me set my agenda. Give me feedback. Take that feedback, process it, and make changes based on what your community. That is a set of tools that we now, as goodparty.org, have a seat at the table to try to present. And you all, as civic heroes who are running or winning, have the ability now to start taking and serving your community in a different way. And as we start doing this transparently, accountably, and people in your community, whether they voted for you or your opponent or did not vote or sat this one out, start to see real tangible difference from goodparty.org's candidates, and a different way of representing that seems more true to democracy. I think this ladders up very, very easily and scalably up to from the local to the state to the federal level over the next few years, and hopefully you guys are at the beginning, and we are all at the beginning of something amazing, which is called representative democracy, that we have not yet seen. I don't think that in our lifetimes, because we've been seeing representatives representing money, and that gets tiring really fast. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Farhad, and the inspiring vision about where we've been and also where we're going. This feels like a good time to pivot into really talking about how to make that vision a reality for 2025. And so I want to introduce our COO, Victoria, who's been at the forefront of crafting the roadmap for what's next. And with the lessons that we've learned from 2024 and the commitment to exponential growth, there's really nobody better to guide us through what the opportunities ahead are. Victoria, can you share what the plan is for 2025? And I'm going to go ahead and reshare a couple more slides for folks.
Yeah, no, so glad to have you all here. Thank you for tuning in for this. And yeah, we've got some really exciting stuff cooking here. I think the important place to start is, people hear 2025, oh, it must be a really tiny year. The presidential of 2024 is over. It's going to be so quiet. No, actually. So when we look at the raw numbers, and this data, comes from Ballot at the very tip top here, we see 100,000 races in 2024. There's 90,243 in 2025. So only 10% less, actually. It's all local. So we don't have the same effects of a presidential year where things are really driven toward November. But it's a huge opportunity, and it's not going to slow down or be very quiet. So if you go to the next slide here, I think it's interesting to see where are all these elections happening in an off year. You can see Illinois, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New York, Washington State, Ohio, Iowa, Texas, Kansas, South Dakota. These are just the top 10. There's a lot of places with elections, and you can see the breakdown of generals versus runoffs versus primaries if you want to get that nerdy about it. So a lot of opportunity in these places. And if you go to the next slide here, we also have a different shape to the year, which is kind of interesting. So in a presidential year, it's pretty backloaded. It's pretty November heavy. In a year like 2025, what we see is half the elections are happening in the spring, before the end of June. So we have kind of two big chunks of the year, which for us and our organization is actually really great because it gives us a lot of at-bats, a lot of opportunities to try things and improve on what we did this year, learn really quickly, and then, iterate our way to then have the bigger at-bat at the end of the year, all at once in November. So, just a different shape to work with, but I think a lot of opportunity built into that different shape. And then if we go to the next slide here, the other piece of information that's important, and I'll just explain what filing even means in a second. You have to file to run for office. You have to get enough signatures. You have to get, your name on the ballot. That has to be published by, a local, office that says, yes, you've made it, you're on the ballot. So that's the filing deadlines. That's when our work especially really starts, when we can go out and find these candidates, see the races, and reach out to these people. And we see, again, because there's that huge spring cohort of elections, a lot of filing deadlines, they tend to run about 90 days before an election, especially these local elections. So it's a big, the work starts in January, right? In December here. So a lot going on, in Q1, and then it's going to keep building. That big chunk in August, those filing deadlines are for the November elections primarily. So I think we'll say this at the end, but if you are considering running for office and you live in one of these states that have local elections next year, or do you live in one of these states and know someone who should run for office, it's important to look soon because these filing deadlines could be coming up actually pretty quickly to put your hat in and make that happen. And then if we go to the next slide here. So, where does this lead us? We have, 90,000 races, that we'll know about. There are even more that are really small that we don't have data for, but we're going to go find. We're going to be reaching out to 80,000 plus of those candidates through the operation that we've built, which is really exciting and is scaling beautifully. Based on what we learned this year, we expect at least 23,000 of those will be running independent, people-powered, anti-corruption and civil campaigns. So meeting our criteria to be a user of goodparty.org's tools and participate in what we're doing. And I'm getting some notes, Rob, that the slides are blurry for some people. I don't know if you just want to hit refresh on them. I'm not sure if that's happening for other people, but I'm seeing some chatter there. So we'll put that back up for 1 second here. So yeah, 23,000, folks that we expect we can bring into the tent, right, to build this independent movement. And then, what we're going to do is we're going to be empowering those campaigns with our technology tools, with political support to help them win. And we're going to be, iterating on doing that better and better as we did this year into next year. I think one thing we, didn't touch on as much earlier about candidates like Robin Brown and others, who were, we call her pro candidate. Pro means that, she had access to voter data as part of our product. And so we're able to do a lot more with that voter data to help candidates be successful, and creating custom voter files. We can send peer-to-peer messages based on those voter files, and those are text messages. This year we sent 4,060,682 peer-to-peer messages. So it's things like that that are going to scale up into 2025 that we're really excited about. And then if you go to the next slide, what does that mean? How many wins are we, trying to get? Our goal is 15,000 wins next year for independent candidates, independent, people-powered, anti-corruption, civil candidates. That's our goal. That's our focus. And, we've been building the models, pulling the pieces together. We're going to make this happen. We're confident that we can go after this goal, and we need to, continue to bring on more candidates and build this movement to achieve that. But it's in our sights, and 15,000 in a year like 2025, that's setting up a really exciting, future for us in the year like 2026, where you get more of those opportunities back at the state and the federal level. So if you go to the last little slide here, Rob, please. We just, we can see what this hopefully looks like for those who like a hockey stick. That's definitely what we're after here for exponential growth. So, and, backing that up to make it happen.
Awesome. So thank you all. And thank you, Victoria. This is an exciting roadmap to see this movement continue to grow and to scale at this rate. We have audacious goals, which are really exciting. I want to take a moment to amplify the story about how we bring people into the movement even more. And I believe that we've got Mayor-elect Mark Hawkins on the call with us. And Mark is somebody who's been on both sides of our movement as a candidate and also as a supporter. Quinn, you might have to take Mark off of mute, but Mark, I'd love for you to start by just telling us a little bit about your experience working with goodparty.org.
Yep, Mark, if you could just raise your hand for me, that'd be awesome.
I'm seeing a Mark, but I'm not seeing our Mark. So, because our Mark is M-A-R-Q, not M-A-R-K. So we may have a moment here.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I will skip ahead to talking a little bit about what everyone here can do to help this movement. The long story short is that there are two key asks that we have for everyone who's on this call right now. One is to run for office yourself. The folks who we have highlighted throughout this process, they took that brave step to do more for their community. And so we're asking you to you yourself run, or someone who you trust, push someone that you trust to run for office. Quinn is going to drop a link in the chat box here that you can share to these friends, or you can explore yourself, and it will put the best path towards getting access to our tools in front of all of you. And then if you're someone who doesn't want to run for office, the thing that we ask of you is to help share the story. Help share the story of the people who are running and winning. We had this incredible movement where we were able to get 6,000 plus people to run for office, 3,280 some odd winners. But this, if it doesn't get told, if the story doesn't get spread, then it happens in a vacuum, right? So we are trying to both change norms and beliefs. We want people to know that independents, not only can they win, but they are winning and they're thriving. So Quinn is also going to share a link that lands people on our homepage and shows that map of all of the winners. This is also a really great resource. I saw people asking in the chat box throughout the presentation. I think somebody asked about who are the winners in Alaska, who are the winners in my state. You can go through and you can find each of the people who ran for office who are now maybe representing you in where you live. So again, the two biggest things that we have to ask of you: run for office, get someone who you know and trust to run, and help us to share this story. Tell the story of a movement that's on the rise. All right. On that note, I want us to be able to pivot into Q&A and some of the questions that the audience might have for us. I'm going to start with a question from the chat from Leonard, which says, what are you doing to create a goodparty.org as an anti-corruption brand to compete with the other party brands? And I kind of will offer this up as a jump ball. I see Farhad coming off of mute. Farhad, do you want to take this one?
I do. I think that one of the things that we are doing is we're actually winning and helping people serve. And then we have an incredible brand. I don't know if you noticed this thing. We literally we are up against an elephant and a jackass. Okay, like as far as branding goes, like I couldn't ask for a better. And and probably everyone, even the people involved with those organizations, is not super excited about the brand. So. The proof is in the pudding that's coming. I think trying to jump up and down and say we're this, coming, the independents are saving the world or whatever, like before we're doing it, actually, there's no point in that. The real exciting news here is when you're talking about 15,000 wins out of like 90,000 races, that means like 30,000 races we're going to be competing in. That's a third of all races across the land. And as those people come online, there's no reason to raise, our profile too high. We know the reaction of each party to each other when things aren't going their way. Now imagine both parties' reaction to us as we come. Our hope is to come from the bottom up, people's movement, showing through service the set of tools, actually not just winning, but winning and showing that different way, and then branding those wins as empowered by Good Party. I don't know if you noticed, it says goodparty.org, empowering independents to run, win, and serve. That's our entire reason for existence. And we want to have this independent, people-powered, anti-corruption set of candidates, all of you who took the pledge, all of you who are serving, highlight you as civic heroes, each in your own little communities, but then all together in all communities, kind of rising from the bottom up. And as we ladder up and go to state and federal races, I think the brand itself, I'll put this red, bright and blue little shiny heart and star against those outdated animals anytime, and hopefully humanity wins. I think that's the goal here. It's just to have it be emergent and come up from the bottom up, not trying to trumpet ourselves before the hand or even alerting the beast before it's time. So that's the idea.
I'll add too, if you want one of the shiny stickers that Farhad is wearing, I just dropped the link in the chat, and Quinn, if you can put it on social too, it's goodparty.org/get-stickers. So we're happy to share the brand with you all for sure.
I have another question from the chat coming from Catherine Cooper, who asks, do you have any plans to work towards ranked choice voting? And I want to tee this one up to Victoria, because we've hosted AMAs with ranked choice voting experts in the past that Victoria's been a part of. Victoria, how do we feel about ranked choice voting at goodparty.org?
Yeah, we feel great about ranked choice voting and any electoral reform, quite frankly, that makes voting better, that our first past the post system that's in place in most places. So we are part of the wider democracy reform movement. Thankfully we're not doing this alone. There's a lot of great organizations working to enact reforms like ranked choice voting. And we see how that and some of the other versions as well, like Final Four, Final Five voting, etc. They typically all really help independent and nonpartisan and third party candidates perform better and have a better shot at winning. So yeah, we are very supportive. I know myself, obviously, I work on this full time, but I also volunteer, for Faribault, Illinois, here where I live, to support ranked choice voting as well, because I think it's an important step for where I live to unlock, the ability for more independents to win in a state like Illinois that's, very one party rule, kind of run. So. And I know, Rob, you have a deeper bench of ranked choice voting experience, and Rob is actually with the Democracy Reformers, is a conference of nonpartisan democracy reform organizations that's happening right now in San Diego that Rob's actually representing us at. So I don't know what you want to add, Rob, because you're in it right now.
Yeah, ranked choice voting and also open primaries have been two of the main themes of my day today. I'm talking with experts from around the country who are working on these issues. And there's been some really encouraging forward progress, both in defending ranked choice voting in states that have won it and also expanding access to that reform, open primaries as well. So it's been a good day of reform talk for me. I have another question that I want to tee up here about federal offices. And I think either Jacques or Farhad, if you want to give your best take on this, we have a question here from Hassel who says, local and state offices are extremely important and have so much more direct impact on their communities. So it's awesome to see the way that you guys have focused on helping candidates get elected for local and state seats. But federal elections are still important and is usually where most of the gridlock is. What is the Good Party vision for how independents can build up coalitions in Congress and begin to crack through at the federal level?
Yeah, I'll take that first crack at that, Rob. Initially it's a ground up movement, right? Truly. I mean, we talked about there's 99.9% of the elected races next year. 96% of all elected offices in America are at the local level. You talked about it in your question, the idea that they're important. They're important for many reasons, including what you mentioned about the direct impact to communities, but they're also important because they're the entry level in some respects to serving at the higher levels, right? Today's mayors and city councilors become tomorrow's state legislators and governors and Congress members. And so our thinking is, rather than go for a moonshot and get an independent candidate elected to Congress and have them be frozen out by the Republicans and the Democratic caucuses, that we need to build. For example, there was a board and a council board in Virginia this year where there was a slate of independent candidates, goodparty.org certified candidates who ran. I think those opportunities are going to emerge. We see a lot of opportunities in multi-seat councils around the country. And as the number goes from 3,000 to 15,000, you're going to see winners that are preparing for the next round of elections and have built credibility by serving their community, not just getting voters, but actually serving constituents who say, you know what, you should be the next person that runs for Congress. You should be the next person that runs for a higher office. And I think we're lucky. We're in a situation where we're playing the long game here, and we think it'll be emergent. Another way to answer that question, that's another track on that, is we shared the slide earlier about states, and we talked about there were some early adopter states. Really, Minnesota had an outsized showing with over 900 wins. I mean, those are coalitions that are naturally emerging, right? I mean, if you got 900 elected officials that are independent, people power, and anti-corruption, and you connect those people, and you think about how many millions of people voted for those 900 candidates in Minnesota, all of a sudden you've got a lot of political power, essentially, to rise up the ranks and make impact. So that's how I view it. I don't know if any of the other team members want to add to that.
I 100% agree. I think that also, like, we almost slipped one through. We had Dan Osborne running in Nebraska as a Good Party candidate in the Senate. He almost pulled it off. So I think this is one, the beginning of our ascent here. As we get more and more wins and people serving, I think we'll have bigger and bigger coalitions, and the federal wins will emerge naturally, organically. That's the way it's supposed to be. We don't want to force the issue, but the exponential is coming anyway.
So it's good that you say Dan Osborne. The next question comes from a member of Dan Osborne's team. They say Good Party has clearly showed that with the right tools, independents can win elections. And coming from the Dan Osborne Senate race, we really struggled with having to use tools that were a part of the two-party infrastructure that allowed our opponent to mischaracterize Dan. What other infrastructure tools does Good Party see as necessary for independents to win? And again, I'll allow a jump ball on this. I'd like to chime in on this a little bit. If the parties do it, the candidates need a way to be able to do it as well. right? So if it's being able to connect with people face to face, to have digital tools, we've started with some of the most basic pieces like voter data. That is one of the most expensive parts of running a campaign and is one of the most valuable pieces for targeting all of your messaging. And as much as anything else, I want to hear from you guys, from Dan's campaign. What were the gaps? We started, my first days with goodparty.org, we audited a number of independent campaigns and asked them where were the blind spots. And we sort of saw the areas that they weren't getting the same tools that the party politicians were getting from the parties. And we tried to fill in gaps, and we're continuously learning. So we'd love to hear from you. What did you wish you had in your toolkit? And this bridges in nicely to another question from Alejandra Levy, who says, I'm grateful for all the help that I've received, but now that I've won, I feel like I need the most assistance. Is there a program to stay in touch with the Good Party team? Alternatively, can I connect with other elected officials from this group or others? And I see Jack jumped on that almost immediately to say that we'll get you in with our product team, and we're trying to, as Farhad said, build out these serve tools. But we're also in the process of wanting to launch for the first time, because we have this wonderful cohort of winners, a community for elected goodparty.org candidates. So recently we began asking questions. You probably received an email to this effect, Alejandro, asking where that community should live, where's the best place for meeting with people. And then even a level deeper, we've had long conversations about what to do with a state like Minnesota, where you have a high concentration of winners all in the same state. And are there in-person convenings that need to be happening for sharing resources and sharing best practices? So that's my take on those pieces. Anyone else want to weigh in on either of those two questions?
Yes. I think that the key to even entering this game for me personally was that I've become good at building technology products for widespread use. And the way you do that really effectively is iteratively build a learning machine that figures out how it can serve and do it well. We're going to build the entire infrastructure in a better way that the red and the blue have, and make it available to all Americans for free or close to free as possible, as allowed by the FEC. So we're looking for feedback, as Rob said, and I think our job is to build a learning machine that figures out what it is that you need and what it is next. Now, granted, in the Senate race, there are going to be some things that are necessary that aren't necessary for all the lower races. So we're trying to go from the bottom up. So we haven't been as useful for those big federal races yet, but it's coming. And every piece of the campaigning and running and winning and serving infrastructure, we will build, automate. There's such amazing ability for AI to be a powerful kind of complement or campaign tool for folks, helping them, write copy, helping them parse through data and figure out what doors to knock and what places to go and how to present themselves and how to present their ideas. And we'll build it all. I mean, we're not going to stop. But what we do require that will help us tremendously is your input. You are the people on the ground floor. You're the people who are fighting the battles, and you're facing the problems that we need to solve. So tell us what we need to do, and we'll get it done.
Love it. I see a question here from Barbara, and I want to point this one towards Victoria. Barbara says, assume I run, you back me, and I win. What will your organization expect me to support? And we're not really prescriptive on policy. We have a pledge that we ask people to take. But Victoria, can you talk a little bit about what's in that pledge and your take on what we would expect a winning candidate to support?
Sure. I think that's what's truly unique about what we do and how we're differentiated from other organizations working in the political space. We are nonpartisan. We're not, going to say, oh, okay, you want to work with us? Here's a list of all the policies that you have to believe in and support. It's up to you and what you believe in and what you believe is actually going to be the best for your community, and let the voters decide, right, who they want to represent them. We're really democratizing democracy in that way. It's something I'm really proud that we continue to focus on, that we've been, building a team that spans the ideological spectrum, that are all willing to be uncomfortable sometimes, right, with what that really looks like and means, but believe in, what the bigger vision of what that unlocks for us as a country. As far as what we do, require for someone to be using our tools and considered part of our independent movement, there are 4 components, and someone can probably drop in the chat for me the link with the details, but we ask that you're independent of the 2 parties, so you're not caucusing, fundraising, et cetera, right, connected and involved with either party, or you don't have a D or an R next to your name on the ballot. We ask that you're people powered, so you're taking the majority of your funding from individuals, not entities. So you're, want to be, funded by the people so that you can serve the people, which goes back to what Farhad said earlier about the problem, with politics. At the local level, you can end up taking the majority of your funding from, one, big donor in that town, right, et cetera. So we're trying to solve that problem, let alone at the federal level. The third piece is that you're anti-corruption, so you're committed to transparency and results, right? That's why you want to run, and how you would want to serve if elected. And the last thing is that you are civil. You don't have any history of mudslinging or hate, toward any protected groups. So we have a minimum standard of civility. It's up to you what your ideology and your policies are beyond that, but we do have a minimum standard there that's important to us and that we uphold. So that's what it looks like. And when you look at the, all these winners, they are very diverse, and that's really, really exciting to me. Jacques, I saw you unmute. Did you want to chime in on that?
Nope, you hit all the notes. Thank you.
I see another question that kind of gets at one of our differentiating factors that asks, will Good Party ever become a proper political party? And we've really decided not to do that. And I thought maybe Farhad, you could talk about, that's always been a guiding light decision from you. Can you talk about why the only party we like has music and beer?
Yeah, well, that was the idea. Everybody loves a good party, and at a good party, you break bread, you meet friends, you hang out and know politicians. I think that it has not been possible to just represent people on issues before. Just take a set of issues. They can be all the red or the blues issues if that's how you choose to represent, or they can be 9 out of 10. You should be able to run out of on a bespoke set of issues that you think are important to your community. Your community should be able to vote and elect you, and you should be able to caucus and work with any and all people and other representatives who share your interests. And in this way, the majority wins and the minority rights are hopefully protected, and that works. That's true representative democracy. I think the parties are an abstraction from that, and they pull away from that. And us, coming in, with our version of a good party, a political party, I think it will over the course of time would go down the same rabbit hole of corruption that these guys have gone. They didn't start out this way. It just kind of starts to become about party over politics, and you can see some of these people cringing at their own party that they can't break out of whatever positions their party has decided to go down. We don't want to be in that position. By the way, none of us, at least myself, I had no ambition to run. We're building the infrastructure, the OS, if you would, for democratizing democracy. That's a really important and awesome role. It's much better if you're not corrupted by, your own set of ambitions here. I think if we do that, humanity wins, and we're humans. So we should all win together like that. So no ambition to become a political party. I hope the joke, not the joke, but the idea, the pun, the good party part, it emerges because there's a little bit of a hurdle that we have to keep crossing and say, good party. We're not a political party. It's a destination. We're going towards a good party. But I think the people will start to know that, and I think that's why we lean on the symbol more than we do necessarily the words. But yeah, no ambition at all to be a good political party. That's what we're solving.
I want to uplift a comment that I'm seeing. I'm getting a little bit of love from some of the folks who have run for office in the past and who have been candidates. And this came from Eve Marie Little. This is one that we should bookmark as we're thinking through building out the serve tools. Eve says, I wish that I had the email addresses for my constituents so I can keep working and building my relationship with them and reach out to them directly now that I'm elected. And I see a lot of other elected officials kind of commenting to similar effect or reacting to that. So that's one that we should definitely bookmark there. And then Eva also asked a question stating that she's having some difficulties on how to communicate with some of the more elderly folks in her community. They don't respond to text messages or emails, but they do communicate a little bit in person. So the question is, what type of communications or suggestions do we have that we could put together, possibly using AI, or like how would you leverage our tools towards that audience? And I think maybe that's one that we can get a deeper dive into off of this call. But just if there are any smart ideas, sometimes I like to open up these problem-solving questions to the group think here. And if you're one of the other candidates who has experience with elderly outreach, feel free to respond to that comment in the chat, because I think we can group think some solutions that might be able to help Eve Marie. This is also the type of thing that we do in our candidate channel in Discord. So this is a good opportunity for me to point you towards that community if you're not already a part of that, because we're always trying to take these tricky questions that don't have the quickest, easiest answer and have conversation and some fellowship around those. We have a question from Instagram that Quinn just sent me that says, how can we grab the hordes of people leaving the Uniparty to make a voter database much like Van, so a place for all of the candidates canvassing information to land after we've had the ability to contact them? That's a good question. That's something that's come up a handful of times with different candidates, and as if it continues to come up as an item of interest, I think it will direct some of what we're building. I saw Jacques come off of the mic on this one. Any thoughts on CRM type integration or voter file beyond our current offerings?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's connected to Eve's question. I'll quote Farhad from the early days when we first started Good Party. Said, he was asking the question, who's building the digital tech stack for democracy in the 21st century? And we kind of looked around and we said, well, nobody. And so more specifically, it was in the earlier question, it's related to this question about political parties. When you step back and look at how our political system works, politics is kind of hijacked government, right? Government is supposed to provide service. Politics is an industry. And there's two parties that are self-regulating, and they make the rules. And then what they've done is they've created an industry where they have their own vendors. And I think a few of the folks on the call have noted this in the chat. So there's Republican vendors and there's Democratic vendors. And so you got to have access to the tools to be able to be competitive. You've got to go and kind of take I call it the blood oath to red or blue to be able to compete. And what we've said is, well, that's just silly. It's just technology. And in fact, it's not even that good a technology in a lot of cases on the red or blue side. So you get someone like Farhad that's got a long track record of building tech, and you say, I'm not in it for the money. And the reason that the industry is captured is because to make money as a technology company, you need someone that's a paying customer. Well, all the money's on the red side and the blue side. I don't know if anybody looked. This last election, they spent $20 billion just on elections. And so here we are saying, you know what? There should be a new version of how you run for office. It should be publicly available. It should be essentially be infrastructure. And it shouldn't be captured and transactional in a financial transaction that costs you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And so what we've said is, whether it's Van, whether it's what Nation Builder's doing, whether it's text messaging, GeoTV, door knocking apps, I mean, all of that stuff is doable. The team that we've built and are continuing to grow have those skills. It's the idea of prioritizing them based on your feedback, the people that are running for office, who want to run as an independent, who don't want to make that commitment to Republican or Democrat, and just want to be able to stay independent and serve their community, and saying, hey, let's stack up the prioritization. What's the highest value, highest leverage stuff we can build for you that you have to compete with? So if that's a voter file full of independent, high propensity independent voters, great. Let's build that. If that's tools that lets you stay connected from when you're a candidate to when you become an elected official with your constituents because they're your voters, great, let's build that. And so we're excited, super energized. The feedback you give us is great input. Our appetite is to build it all, frankly. Obviously, we do that in a stepwise fashion. We do that iteratively, like Farhad said. We're in it for the long haul. The more feedback we can get from you all about what's highest impact, that's what we'll be building next. So
and one thing, it should be our tools are open source. And they should be a public good utility. I mean, it should be a public good over time, and available to anyone who's willing to be dependent on the people, independent of either any political party, but dependent on the people. And that's the goal over time. Hopefully, as we do better and better and bigger, this should be just a part of an infrastructure for democracy, and it should be built that way. And we're building it towards that. We're not trying to have a proprietary model. We're not trying to keep that. But we even setting this up, I had to fight and back and forth to try to just even get legal representation to try to set up the organization. And it was like, no, I can't help you because you're not blue or you're not red. And I'm like, well, I'm independent. But I'm sorry, I can't. We don't work with independents. So there's like, how on earth is that possible? And this goes all the way down at every level. You want to buy data, not only is it expensive, but they won't sell it to you. It's like, what? How is that? It doesn't make sense. But anyways, we're fortunate in the sense that we can still build and we can build quickly and better. So that's what we're going to do.
So we have another question from Barbara, who asks, what kind of support do you offer for digital advertising? And I'll say this has been one where we get a lot of requests around digital advertising, and our tools currently are built towards the content side. Particularly, the AI is trained to do some copy for digital advertisement. But through the last year, probably the one thing that our PAs, our political analysts, reported up to me was one of the most asked questions is, how do I even get approved to get onto Facebook to be able to do digital advertisement there? So we've been building, and we're going to be relaunching our candidate training program in January, and we typically will do bi-weekly trainings and deep dives into topics. And I know that that's one of the #1 requested trainings, and we're moving into a space of wanting to make those trainings more accessible, to make those trainings and the recordings more accessible, and even get some of the basic takeaways into more of an ebook format. So stay tuned on digital advertising. That I'd love to hear from you what type of tools, Barbara, you would like us to build. But in the meantime, we're going to do everything we can to remove the information barrier that stops you from being able to place ads. Mike asks, does Good Party support, or will they support, promoting public-only campaign funding, as is used in some EU countries as a way to stop manipulative big business and billionaire campaign funding?
I'll jump in. I mean, our mission is to make people matter more than money in our democracy. Victoria and Rob touched on some of the democracy reforms that we kind of generally support as we're part of this movement of improving the state of our democracy. Our take is change the rule makers. Have the rule makers be independent, people-powered, and anti-corruption, and they'll make rules that serve people and are anti-corruption. If they choose to make rules that determine that the majority of the population thinks that public financing is the path, that so be it. That's what they'll choose to do. But I think our view is that this thing has become so corrupted by big money and by I've worked in elected offices in the past, and it's this vicious cycle of re-election, right? They were raising money, always to get reelected. And if we can take out that need to raise money to get reelected and make it cheap to free eventually over time, to just have, like Farhad said, a public good, public infrastructure that lets you put your name out there, serve your, reach out to your community, make them aware that you're ready to represent them, that you have the desire and the skills to represent them, and level that playing field. Then some of these things like public money, or whether it should be, what's the standard of, contribution levels and things of that nature, hopefully start to go away over time, just by the fact that you can compete, win, and serve without money.
We've made a conscious choice not to use money. So we believe in public funding of elections, but we're not going to go spend money trying to make that the new rule. That's not how we are tackling the system. We're tackling it, as Jacques said, from the bottom up with real people getting into office and enacting the rules for people. And so that's a slight difference. It does hamper us a little bit, but I don't believe in our use of the money in politics is better than your use of the money in politics. That's not the way democracy is supposed to work. And so we're building tools to allow democracy to function. And as a natural outcome of that, I think public funding of elections will become more of a thing as we become more successful in getting people into office.
There's a question here of how do you sign up to run for office in 2025? And that's actually one of the things that we built into the tool. So you can explore the offices that are available near you in this upcoming election. And to do that with Good Party, this is a good time. Quinn, if you can drop the run for office link back into the chat here.
I'll add to, I think a key is some people just want to explore. If you want to send a link to people as well who are curious, like, what can I run for in 2025? What's going on in my community? Like, you have a friend maybe who you're like, maybe they should run. They would be really great. We also have another page where you can put in your state, your county, your municipality. It'll show you. It also does that in the product, but it's just a little bit of a lighter weight way for someone to check out what the opportunities are in their area to run for office. So I just dropped that in the chat. It's goodparty.org/elections.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for the great questions. The Q&A is always my favorite part of these. I want to remind everyone to sign up and get a sticker. So Quinn can drop that link in here as well. Spread the word about this. Your homework tonight is to take this share the story link and share it on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever social media, your LinkedIn profile. Let people know that there's something to be hopeful for in this moment in politics, that independents are not just running, they're winning and they're thriving. And then, yes, please run for office. We desperately need you to run for office and to serve your communities. You are as qualified as any member of Congress, I promise you. So thank you all for being a part of this call. And we are so excited to see you all in 2025. The work has already started, and we are so excited to hopefully have this call next year and be looking back at 15,000 wins.
Thank you.